3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to get going. If you all would mute your mics. I know there's a lot of folks in the background doing stuff. That'd be appreciative. And if you need me, unmute, holler at me, hit up the chat. My name is Ross Parrish. I'm the Vice President of Pre-Construction Services at ACE Consulting. And I have been dealing with RMS 3.0 since it came out. And we've been conducting trainings for it ever since. And yeah, this is our second webinar during the quarantine for everybody. And we're going to continue to do those. We have another scheduling TIA one next week. So tune back in. Same bat time, same bat channel next week. And we'll do it again. If there's any topics anybody would like us to do an hour webinar, feel free. Drop me an email. It's right there on your screen. We're happy to develop something, put something up there, and just really want to interact. So today on our RMS webinar, excuse me, I got a little something going on here. We're going to be covering the Payout application process from SDEF import and how that process usually goes through. We're going to be limited at what we can see. I am using a client's closed out project. As many of y'all know, as many of y'all know, the Corps will not give us a testing project that we can play with and mess up. So this is a completed project, so it is not anything sensitive. It's done. Final payment's been received, and there's going to be limited things we can do with that. So feel free. If I have muted you, I'm sorry. I had a lot of background noise coming through. But if you need anything, there is a chat function. Feel free to chat or wave if you need me. So without further ado, we'll get going here. So I'll get rid of the slideshow. And we'll just jump right into RMS. So for those who have been exposed to the Corps, you're very familiar with RMS. Just like when we sign into a particular contract, this is our main screen. Like I said, this building's complete. Final payment's been received. I came into this one a little bit late, but they don't mind if we use it since it's complete. So this is the general setup. You'll have a picture of your site, what's going on. The Corps typically updates those throughout. So our pay application process, as we know, is based on work percentages complete in the field. What is our physical work complete? So, and they're usually done month to month. Sometimes it slips, goes longer. Very rarely do we get the opportunity to do multiple in a month, but sometimes it does happen. In the government world, especially Corps, those are usually dictated by the schedule. Now, you can do some smaller projects to where the schedule is not being used as such, and there are options for that, but those are pretty much, under $200,000 contracts. For these contracts, we're using P6, Primavera P6, to create a schedule, update it, and provide an SDEF, and that's just conversion format that Corps has been using forever, and it imports into this software. Why is that all important? Well, it's important because there's two ways to update information throughout this system. You can manually add stuff, like in our daily reports. We can manually add start and stops. And apparently everybody in the neighborhood's on the internet. So we can manually add stuff like that. QC narratives, we can add them. This project's complete, so they're not going to have anything, but we can add stuff there. If items are linked together, and what I mean by that, process becomes very nice throughout the system. So as we get ready to do this and you're setting up your job, there's a lot of different things we can connect items to. Submittal assignments. If you have your activities from your schedule in your spec section, you can connect all of these to it for different activities. Connect your activity to these spec sections. It also pulls up when you're doing a pay. We have our pay. We have our pay activities right over here under the finance tab. So this all links together. If you are familiar, and I'm sure you are, with the APP, QCP process, there's different things that come across and come through the SDEF and this system. If on here, if you have everything filled out correctly, this is just the basic info. Excuse me, let me grab a drink of water. So these are our subcontractors for this project. This responsibility code, if it matches your schedule, they will pull the information through. You can also provide POCs, responsibility codes, and for different activities you can provide. So all that's saying is when you import this FDEF, it is updating actual data throughout the RMS software. And so there's multiple ways to do it, but if it links up, it all flows nicely. So when we go to do that, your scheduler or you yourself, however you're going about that, is going to provide you through the update process. You're going to go through your actuals, your work in place percentages, and they're going to produce a file. And we're going to go over here to this import export. And anybody that's familiar with the old QCS and not the new RMS, don't get freaked out. We don't have to sit here for 2 hours and do the import export of a monster contract. This is just a simple text file. It goes very quickly. So if we're doing an import, this is several. We had our initial schedules, monthly updates, recovery schedules, and a lot of times you'll have a final contract did not call for it. So when you're adding that stuff and we're selecting a file, we can put it in here, and then we're going to do a file type. This is important because RMS reads these file types. It updates certain fields based on the file type. So if you, generally speaking, if you put in an initial schedule with actualized data, it's not going to pick up the calls. So it does different things to the software depending on what you're doing. Preliminary schedule, generally it's your first 90 days, or if it's your design build, first 120 days gets you through design. Your initial is construction based. A lot of times we use that as a baseline. If we have an impact schedule, we're going to be showing impacts. If for some reason everything went haywire, which many of us are doing right now with this COVID going on, we're going to have an impact schedule. We might have to re-baseline it if everything changes. But if it's just a typical month-to-month pay application, we're going to do a monthly update. This is the completion schedule that I was referencing a few minutes ago that'll close out a project if your particular district requires that. Some do, some don't. I know you guys are familiar with the different districts and even different CORs, QAs, ACOs, always look at things a little bit differently. So communication's key on this, but if it's just a regular monthly update, we put it in. File version, it's almost always one, unless you're resubmitting. The project ID, I use this number right here, because this is the ID that comes through via RMS, and it keeps it clean and easy. So if we were going to go through this process, and it might not let us go very far since this is a closed out job. Ooh, it will. Cool. We'll just have to remember to delete that. So we can have this import. And this is the SDEF format that we have. Gives us all our activities, our basic information, and If you've ever had to manipulate back in the day, I feel for you. It's not a lot of fun because spacing and columns and everything has to be right. So I'm sure you all have seen it. And those things will cause errors. So give us our basic thing. We're doing a monthly update. Here's our activity count. Here's our critical count, which this one's high on the critical count. Our version, our cost to date. So this is obviously an old stuff, but how we go about this, the first thing we do is we're going to request acceptance. That's going to go to your scheduler or the PM, whoever's doing this schedule. It's going to be updated, provided with all the reports and narratives, any logic corrections or any out of sequence work that we had to correct. So that should be all taken care of in the field. We get to this point, we're uploading it. So nothing should have changed to this point, and we're going to request acceptance. So if they request acceptance and we're not going to request it now, is complete, but it'll come back here and it'll say acceptance requested, just like that. All right, Core will do their thing, they'll review it, and this is depending on the district you're in. A lot of times you will submit your schedule update package at the same time you're doing this. They want to review it in tandem. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you do this first. Really depends on your district. I have had clients in different districts that they require the schedule update to go in with the pay app itself, which makes it kind of goofy. If there's an issue, it might hold up your pay app. So obviously it's how the Core wants to receive the information. But in this screen, you'll see acceptance requested. So once the guy accepts it, it'll be accepted for import. So obviously that's communication with your COR QA. Make sure they're doing their part. If it's taking a while, ping them, let them get their thing. But once it's accepted to import and we can get back in this, do the data and make sure it's right. We're going to make sure all our cleanses are balanced. We're going to make sure that there's no errors. This one has an imbalance, probably because there were some mods, and this is an older SDF. Yeah, there's changes. So it's not matching up. We'll just have to delete it, but that's okay. If everything is good to go and there is no red to the contract, that's our first step. It updates our whole RMS database based on our actual work in place. All right. So that now here's one step. The next step, a lot of PMs don't like to do. They like to do their pay apps manually. The nice thing with RMS 3.0 is we don't have to do that. If we have imported into the contract and update our database, we can go right here into the preview import earnings. And maybe it'll. So now down here, if this was all good to go, we had no red, we can import it into an invoice. Now we're doing monthly updates and we have everything labeled correctly. We select the right type of SDF. This goes right into our pay application process, right into an invoice, and it goes from what has just changed. If we have new activities actualized with work in place percentages, our percentage went from 50 to 75%. The software is smart enough to pick that up without us having to calculate it, which is great. So we import it into our invoice right here if everything is up to snuff. All right. So once it does that, we can jump back in to the finance tab and check out a progress payment. Oh, but if we get into it, it will populate us. Now, our earned value should match based on what our earned value was last time versus what we're requesting. Most of the PMs, if you're a PM on this call, you know about the dollar amount you're requesting. It should be really close. So requested this period, total requested, previous amount. So activities earning this period, additional earnings, and total earnings. It'll all come right into this, which is great, because all you have to do then is select your pay period, what it's paid through, and the invoice date, and update your subcontractor earnings. A lot of folks, there's been a lot of core districts that are very slack on this, but use the Miller Act for subs that have not been paid. This becomes a lot more important. You want to track how much you're paying your subs out of these invoices, because if you're requesting money on their work, you're supposed to use that money to pay them that work. So make sure you're updating the earnings you might have. You can do for stored materials, that sort of thing. It gets complicated based on how they do it. You can request CLIN earnings, and that's generally for smaller projects. To, maybe it's 100, 200 grand, and one line item's maybe fencing. So you're just requesting that whole CLIN. That is a possibility. On any substantial side, I would definitely do activity schedule based, would be my recommendation. The nice thing too is if you have a long-term project and you're a PM or senior PM or VP, you can sort through these things and get info. All activities, activities not paid in full, activities that are with earnings paid this period. We'll have to do that sometimes if chase down why a CLIN's imbalanced. So we use those filters a lot to chase that down. A lot of times it has to do with mods. Somebody added a mod to RMS, but haven't told us yet to add it to our schedule. So it's imbalanced, or the vice versa. They told us to add it to our schedule and they forgot to add it to RMS. So it's not picking up that CLIN and it's imbalanced. So a lot of times we'll have to shake that out. I'm sure you also noticed that P6 and RMS round differently when it comes to money. So be careful when you're cost loading. Try not to get the pennies on a lot of activities. It'll make this process in RMS pretty brutal. So we've got our SDF in there. The Corps has accepted it. We've updated it, imported it through the contract, and now we've produced our pay app. So make sure you fill this out too in the administration tab. So if there is an issue, you can get notified immediately, get it corrected, and get paid. Document package. A lot of folks ask me what to put here. And my go-to is ask your QA COR, because I honestly haven't had one that's been the same. There has been one district wants the whole schedule here, plus the contractor action item list, plus exposure hours, all sorts of things. Some people don't want anything here. Some people want just the schedule update. So it really depends on how they're processing it. Make sure your prompt payment has been filled out correctly. I like to save this myself, this preview page that pops up before it goes in, just for posterity. We had a district where they had somebody new that didn't know RMS, and they kept deleting our pay application. So It wasn't intentional, but it was something that was holding us up and holding up money. So all these little previews I really like to save for posterity. Sometimes we miss it, sometimes we don't, but it's one of those things that can help you in the future. But you can also look at it, make sure the numbers match, make sure everything's engineering 93. I'm sure many of y'all have seen this form before. And it's just taking its sweet time opening. So, typical pay request form, but it fills all this out with you. These are nice. So we already have it all filled out, ready to rock and roll. The last of everything together for this process, click requested earnings down here. Something in RMS is not working for you guys. If something's not letting you progress, more than likely there's a little checkbox somewhere we missed. Happens often, especially if you're new to it, or maybe you only have one core contract and you're only in this system once a month to do the payout. Happens often. Look for these little check boxes. These are key. So then we do that. It populates our document package so we can then sign it and submit it and our pay apps in. So depending on what we have in this document package, what your district wants you to put in, that's what we're putting in. So the next question is, you need to submit your schedule elsewhere. Whoops. We're going to go submit that through the transmittal log. So these are where these things happen. We create a draft transmittal. It's going to be 0132 for our schedule. And this is going to be a periodic schedule update because we've already done our initial. This is the submittal section that's in there. And we're going to select that and move on. Don't mess with these numbers. If you don't have to, RMS auto generates these. I accidentally messed with this on one of the very first 3.0 projects because I used to use QCS and I thought I knew better, and it caused a lot of issues. So that's how we're going to do that. We're going to develop that draft submittal and attach our documentation. Typical documentation is we're going to have some sort of bandit view schedule, which is usually your whole thing. Usually a continuous flow schedule, also known as waterfall. They usually want the typical reports of activity earnings by CLIN, activities report, earned value report, cash flow, logic, and I'm sure I'm missing one. But those are the things. I typically provide a critical path report, milestone report. I typically provide scheduled views, Gantt chart views of those as well. So we usually have about 11, 12 items put in here, the SDEF and the XER. So the nice thing is we can attach all those things. So if you're not familiar with this process and your core rep is asking you to submit it as a submittal, this is what we're doing. We're going to do a transmittal. We're going to attach it there. Document this RMS 3.0. Is they're the same everywhere throughout this whole system, which is super nice. Lets you really reinforce. The thing here is we can just drag and drop files into it. And I'm going to delete this thing, which I'm going to make a note that I got to go delete that SDEF as well. So I'm going to delete this before we go through. But if we just want to grab this and attach this PowerPoint, we can do that. Drag them in there. So that's how we're going to go. Now, they have updated the system a little bit from when it first started. There's not as when they first started. There used to be about 4 or 5 extra steps in this process. A little description in there. Let them know what you're sending over, any notes for whatever reason. You can sign it, go in here through the sign selection process, and go through it that way. So you just go next, put in your password, and you sign it. Make sure you submit for review. This is no longer a checkbox, it's a button, but this is one thing that a lot of folks miss. You're in the heart of it. You know, you're cranking out, you're on a $40-50 million project, and you have hundreds and hundreds of submittals to do, and you're cranking. It's an easy thing to skip. It's an easy thing to miss. So make sure we get that done. Once we do, and can get back any notes, any remarks you want to put, you put here. This is what shows up on a 4025. Now, for anybody that is not familiar with the 4025, this is much the same form the government has been using, I would guess, for, you know, solid 50, 70 years. I mean, this form has been out there for a long time. So this is what it looks like. Any remarks we want to put on here, alerting the reviewer to anything particular. Maybe this is a partial submittal, if it was a product data, you know, or maybe we want to highlight it's a variance so they know. But that's where that goes. We can add more things to the document package and select and include digital signature. It's what we want to do. And then we create and digitally sign this. So that's what changed. There used to be a couple other check boxes to go back and forth, but we're going to create and digitally sign that. It's going to be the same process, putting your password, but as soon as it's done, it's going to transmit that immediately. So make sure you're done before you get to that process. So that's, if we're not submitting our schedule updates through the Payout, we're going to submit it here because we're going to have to get it to the government somehow. Depending on timing, I personally like to do the pencil copy in the field, stuff, Payout, submit this as a submittal, and it all should be very quickly checked because as long as we're doing things on the up and up, we've already agreed on it in the field. Are there extenuating circumstances that maybe it gets to somebody higher up, a COR, ACO, that nicks us or knocks down our percentages? Yes. Unfortunately, that happens. But generally, if we're rolling well, that should be our process. The one thing I do want to bring up real quickly is I keep talking about this pencil copy. If you are updating in the field, these contract reports used a ton. And come on. There it is. So we can look at this thing. If we are, well, this is probably a bad example since everything's closed out. Have items that are open. Now, these are all 100%. Based on our daily reports of what we're doing and updating monthly as we're supposed to and keeping our RMS up to date, we can pull these things. Activities started, paid less than 100%. Activities started, paid less than 100%, including all quantity activities or all activities. Could be for current invoice, could be for previous invoice. But these are really nice. This is an official document provided in RMS to do with. Gives you the activity ID, the name of it, the amount, previous paid, and lets you know what's going on here. So these are becoming more and more used as people know. Things to different activities. Why is that important? Since I blew through the payout process, I'm going to show you why that's important. If you want to do a 3-phase of control, let's look at this one. They have these sheets in there. And I need that just for years. I have it in Word. You know, real easy for me to turn and burn with. Gotcha. Understand 100%. If your RMS is tied together correctly for this what is it, aggregate base course, it will include, if you're tied together throughout the system, it will include every activity that is part of this feature of work because you have it matched in RMS and in your schedule. It'll pull up every activity, every subcontractor involved, and your submittal status right from this one worksheet. So this is not a fantastic example, but it is possible. Let me, I do know of one that's off the top of my head. This should be a good view of this to let you know what I'm talking about. No, oh, that's the wrong job. I'm sorry. So this is pretty much just a few features of work, but it's showing every activity that's involved, showing contractors, should show submittals. There's the AHA. Those are the ones required. Pops them up right there on your screen, lets you know if they're approved or not. If you're a QC and you got a prep coming up, it's a good thing to run this ahead of time. Let you know if it's a very quick look because it's compiling all the data. If, oh crap, a very important submittal is not approved yet. It's under review, or, oh, even worse, we haven't submitted it. So these are good things to use. Good things to know that they exist. And they are powerful if we do use them correctly. So I'm back over to this closed out project. Any questions thus far? Anybody want to see anything, a particular process? All right. No questions thus far. Pretty straightforward on the
Ross.
Yes.
Hey, Ross. If you wanted to use on the Nitzel project, concrete, the one concrete as a feature work, it has been populated. The preparatory and then concrete.
Yeah,
that one.
There's a good example. So this has all of our activities here. Here's our testing logs that are part of it. That those will populate. It's good stuff. There's our activities that we have that are involved in it. You can have your main subcontractors tied to this as well. That'll pop up. So those are all good stuff. Anybody have any process and then of that?
I do have a question on the preparatory, Ross.
Yeah.
So in previous work, we've been able to build a library of deficiencies on the job, repetitive deficiencies. But in the new 3.0, unlike the 2.8, I'm not able to see the existing libraries that I've already built previously.
Have you tried this process of importing them?
No, I have not.
So you can download download a temp.
The CSV.
Yeah, so they have, here's the copy for, it's just an Excel actually, and here's your import instructions. So you can add those in as you go. So
Okay.
here's the instructions. This populated off screen, of course. So you can do, if you're keeping a paper log on site and need to import them in, I don't think it's going to be an official library. It'll let you import them.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So on deficiencies, I don't know where else you would add them in, because that's about the only way you can import them in. You can also export documents from this thing. Always good for posterity. You got a server, big hard drive. You want to save all your documents. Always a good thing. Let's see. What other things that I can show you here real quick while we're all on the phone? And folks, if you all have questions, hit me up. Hit them on the little chat feature on here. I'm sharing my screen, so mine looks a little different. But there's a little chat box if you want to enter something, don't want to speak up, or if you're muted, feel free. General notification. This one on contract notification, a lot of folks don't fill out. It's pretty nice. Phone number, email address, so you can see if a QA added a deficiency. If you're the QC, you're gonna want to know that, right? You're gonna want to know that ASAP to get it complete. If an RFI has been sent, SDEF, if SDEF has been accepted, then text you, email you, notify an RMS, SMS, or email. So especially for a QC on site, that you can do. Sorry, somebody's asking me a question. I was reading at the same time. But these are useful to stay in contact, especially if you have multiple jobs or you spread thin or a big job. It's really nice to get these notifications. These items we can put in: responsibility codes, full names, first day on site, last day on site. Those are important. If you're having payroll, insurance are called payroll required, depending on maybe it's just a service or whatnot, and they're not don't have to have insurance. You know, there's where you want to check that. Their subcontract amount, their POC, all that's good information, especially on a long-term project, because we know staff turns over, things change, the different trades they're a part of. Those are all good to do. The one thing I did want to show you, since we're all here, if these are filled out per your schedule, all this stuff will be filled out. Work category, your cleanse, features of work, activity. This is how it pulls everything through to produce those worksheets. So those are nice. Gives you that the cleanse sum for that as well. But this is where you can do a lot of those. Could be set, if they're set correctly, RMS works 100 times better. It operates well. You don't get all the errors. You don't get frustrated. We have a lot more in-depth training that goes a lot longer than an hour. Goes through every tab, every feature. If anybody's interested, feel free to reach out. Happy to help. Happy to get into it. We can check our cleanse and what's balanced and what's not. Again, this is mods. Nice thing. what contractors are involved here. We can set it, different features of work. So all good stuff. The other super cool thing about, let's just go back to pay activities, about RMS is almost everything can be exported to Excel. We're tracking down projects or trying to run some numbers, budget. It's a great thing to do. It's a nice feature. And all these things are pretty much same throughout. The other thing you can do is grab one of these titles, drag it up here, and it'll sort by description. So if you want to just see controls testing or just see drywall work, those sort of things. So kind of cool. I don't find that feature as useful, but it is. Maybe, you can filter by CLIN, or you can throw it up there and do it, just show those. It'll actually maximize. Come on, there you go. So those are just a couple cool features. So we're coming up to our Q&A section, and y'all have been pretty quiet thus far, and there's 33 of y'all on there. So I'm sure there's something somebody wants to see, and let's use this last 15, 20 minutes. If there's something you want to see, let's look at it. Hours. So if we have our exposure hours, your dailies need to be up to date, but you can, right up here at the top, you can copy from your daily reports. So those are super useful to do that. Have them in, have them approved, and copy your exposure right to it. Remember, your exposure hours are only your exposure on site. Exposure is risk management for the government. If you don't know what the report looks like, it looks like this. A lot of people don't like this system. I really do, because I filled out most of this paperwork by hand and I didn't enjoy it. So I really enjoy this feature. Rumor is it's supposed to come out on your phone for the QCs out there, to where you can take pictures, populate your report as you go. I really like this screen. I know a lot of people don't use it, but I like to see the different activities started, stopped. As a QC and a scheduler, I can see different things very quickly, deficiencies, requirements. If QAs have it, QCs have it, mishaps, or different activities that have started or stopped or not started at all. So those are helpful. They're helpful to a QC if you want to mass update some things. We did all this work and we updated it. So those are pretty useful. Anybody have any questions? Anything you want to see?
Yeah, so Ross, this is where I was asking you about the three-phase inspection. So when you go to the three-phase inspection, is there a place where you can put repetitive into a library, like you used to be able to do in
you're talking about.
There's a library of repetitive deficiencies that you can, of your own, that you can put in there. Yeah, there you go.
So these are for
and
just these jobs.
Can I pull them from like the old RMS system, the 2.38?
I don't think you can pull them from old QCS, not that I know of. But this is, I'm sorry, I thought you meant the deficiencies where we're actually tracking deficiencies. But no, on your inspection steps for your different 3 phases, I know if you built them on one, you can, like for this is QA, you can go get them from other jobs. But even,
Right.
I wonder what I've actually not tried to export this. Kind of curious.
Yeah, because I from other contracts on here, but
And
I was just curious because I have quite a list in the old RMS system.
oh, that's all that did.
Okay.
Yeah, that one I don't know. I haven't tried that. I've tried to use these libraries because I had a decent list myself. And a lot of these libraries, depending on the district you're in, a lot of them aren't this nice. So
Yeah.
a lot of them don't have it.
Yeah.
You got to add new. No,
Yep.
I'll look into that, Bill. I haven't tried that before. So
Okay. Thank you.
yeah. It's just a manual. I don't know. I'll have to give that some thought. See if there's a way to get it in there. I haven't actually tried that yet. Anybody else? Another 15 minutes if there's anything you want to see, any questions you want to ask about RMS. These are our submittal assignments where you can tie pay activities. This is how all those reports get populated. So multiple activities can be tied in there. So those are nice. You put that activity in for those spec sections, and it works well. Your spec sections, sometimes, if it's a if we weren't expecting it, it's not in there, and sometimes we have to add it. So make sure you get it right. You know, so what is that? 0 to 80. Yeah, I don't see it in there. I just see demolition. But so the payout, to just refresh, since we don't have any questions going on right now, the payout process, import. Oh, while I'm here, I am going to delete this one. Make sure you import it. Accept, request acceptance. So you do your pencil copy, get it to you, they get it in the system, or you get it in the system, whatever you have worked out. Request acceptance right here. Core does their thing, accept it. Contract person, get everything updated. And then do the payout. Import it right into the payout, create it for you, do your subcontractor earnings, attach any files you need to, and you're ready to rock and roll. Make sure you do the subcontractor earnings. It's part of the agreement on the prompt payment. And the Prompt Payment Act, you know, they need to pay you within 30 days. So make sure you get this stuff in timely, make it correct, and get it in so we can all get paid. That's the name of the game here. Payment POCs is make sure you get it in there. So make sure you get it in there. Bonding. Contractor staff, this is where you add folks on your staff. Give them different rights. Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Question, comment? Want to see some more things in RMS? Happy to go through more. Answer any questions. Make sure you're updating your insurances. This will, if you do type it in here, it will tell you when they're about to expire, give you a notification. So you can get on your subs, make sure they're covered. If you don't know what SF 1413 is, it's acknowledgement of subcontract. Make sure you're getting those and putting those in here as well, because you can upload those in the system. So if nobody has any further questions, be happy to let you guys go early. Everybody has other stuff. Yeah.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you.
Feel free. Yeah, no problem. Feel free. There's my email if you got any questions, phone number. Hit me up. I'm around.